You welcomed me. You know, we hear this whole sense of welcome again and again throughout scriptures. We hear this whole thing again and again where Jesus is now sending messengers ahead of him. So let's situate ourselves first, because we're now coming back from the feast that followed Easter back into Luke's gospel, and we're going to start tracing Luke's gospel again. We suspended it all the way back in the winter, really, when we went over to the Lenten readings back in March. Now we're getting back. What happened in the 4 preceding chapters to today is Jesus was out doing miracles, giving talks, converting people, bringing sinners to himself, doing all of these great things that are garnering a lot of attention. I mean, let's face it, if someone were walking around Kings Park right now, raising the dead, healing the sick, you'd probably want to pay attention, wouldn't you? So people were paying attention to him all of a sudden. Now that this is starting, today's passage is a distinct turning point in Luke's gospel. And you can tell that because the very first line says, now he's resolutely heading towards Jerusalem. Now he's going to make that journey to Jerusalem. We know how that ends up. He's going to make that one journey in Luke's gospel to Jerusalem, where he's going to end up being crucified and shedding his blood for the forgiveness of sins. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, let us focus first off on this transition. But then I want you to think about it. See, here last week we celebrated Corpus Christi, and the bishops have asked us to have a year of revival for the Eucharist, of getting our people once again excited about praying before the Blessed Sacrament, about being worthy to receive Holy Communion, about Jesus' real presence in our midst. You welcomed me. In the ancient world and in impoverished places around the world, if you've ever visited people who live in, a peasantry kind of way of life, hospitality is one of the highest marks of that culture. I remember the first time I was visiting my relatives, and they were peasant farmers. They had nothing. They had a house and they had their farm, and that was pretty much it. They didn't have money. They didn't have, swimming pools. They didn't have air conditioning. They didn't have any of these creature comforts that all of us are so used to. And the way I was treated when I entered their home blew my mind. We were sleeping comfortably every night. We weren't thinking twice about it. And as I walked around this very small house, I said, well, there's only 3 rooms. There's 7 of us. Where are they sleeping? They gave us their rooms, and they went and slept in the barn. That sense of hospitality. You welcomed me. You welcomed me into your life. You welcomed me into your home. This was very common in the Old Testament. Throughout the Old Testament, you hear a lot of these stories where like a prophet will show up, he'll see a widow and he'll say, get me some food. And she goes and does it. It's like, I'm waiting for you to come. I have it ready to go now. Here we go. Or like sometimes you'll have readings where somebody will come and they'll say, go get me something to eat. And they'll have a bull ready to be slaughtered. They'll have it slaughtered and on the table in one verse. It's great. How quickly they can do it. Almost like, a mother of 30 or something. It's like I can just feed 30 people on the drop of a hat. That sense of inviting, of welcoming, and of having that heart, that disposition to receive the other into my life. And so in the coming weeks, Jesus is going to now be going around, and he's going to be sending out his messengers to prepare the way. These are people that obviously must have experienced some of what he's been saying and doing, because he's telling them, go forth and tell others what you've heard. Go forth now in an excited kind of way and let others know I'm coming. You welcomed me. We're going to hear, even later on in the gospel, how Jesus welcomes the children, how their innocence in receiving him is so precious and beautiful. We're going to hear stories about how Jesus is even going to say to them, listen, go into a town. If they don't hear your message, shake the dust and move on. Their hearts are not disposed to receive you. They're not going to welcome you, so just move on. Don't even try, because the hardness of their hearts is too hard. And I haven't got enough time. We're making this journey now. I haven't got a lot of time left. So we're going to have to get that message out to those who wish to welcome Christ. And so I say to each and every one of you who have chosen to be here this morning, you have wanted to be here this morning. You have gone out of your way to be in this church this morning. Jesus now stands before you Do you welcome him fully into your life? Now, before you give me a knee-jerk reaction to that, let me tell you, I know in my own life, there were times when I would have said that where my actions and my lifestyle wasn't bearing out that truth. To welcome Jesus into my heart. Liken it to your home. The way we prepare our homes when guests are coming. The way we get things ready. The way we make sure everything is in place. Everything is clean. We have the right food. We have the right amount. We're doing all of these preparations. And yet, how many of us, when Jesus stands before us, have done that internal kind of change inside? And that's a real struggle for all of us. Let's face it, none of us are going to be ready all the time. We have to keep working at it and keep working at it. I find that first reading very, very interesting because Elijah knows his time is numbered and he's going to need someone to replace him. And so he's sent by God to this man, Elisha, and he walks in and throws his cloak over him and says, "You're the one. Let's go." What do you mean, go feed your family? What are you talking about? Go ahead. Let's get this done so we can get out of here. And off they go, and Elisha walks away from everything he knew, basically burning the things that would have fed him, destroying it all, saying, "This is how much I want to follow God. I will get rid of everything." Now that gives us a good context for today's gospel, because when you were listening to today's gospel, did you get a little uncomfortable? Didn't it seem Jesus was being like a little rude? You know, we make this wishy-washy Jesus sometimes as this, nice guy that never offended anybody. "Lord, let me go bury my father." Let the dead bury their dead. Could you imagine if you came up to me and said, "I will follow you, Jesus, wherever you go. Just give me a second, my dad just died." And I said that to you? Boy, the gossip in Kings Park would ratchet up like you wouldn't believe. What a horrible man that is. He's not a credit to the clergy. He's not. What is Jesus doing in this passage? They'll even walk up to him and say, "I will follow you wherever you go." Doesn't that sound great? But, I will follow you. But, see, Bishop Barron says it wonderfully in the Catholicism series, and he said it wonderfully in the homily that he released for this weekend earlier this week. When it comes to Jesus, it's an either or. Either you're going to receive him or you're not. There's no in-between when it comes to Jesus. We have a tendency sometimes, especially in this pluralistic world of ours, to see Jesus as just another great figure, just another good moral teacher, just a nice guy that's just like any of the others. But that's not the case. Jesus just said to all of them, either you're with me or you're not. Either you're on the team or you're not. Either you're going to do it or you're not. But don't give me half-hearted, vague, big buts, because you can't get through the narrow gate with a big butt. It used to be funny. Think about it, my dear brothers and sisters. Think about your own life. Do you really, truly have a heart ready to welcome Christ? Is your life truly ready to welcome him? Because for the next few weeks, this is going to be our parish reflection. This is what we're going to kind of pick up on a little bit. If we truly say we're a Eucharistic people, well, then we have to do all that preparatory work to receive our Lord week after week, to dispose our lives and our hearts, the homes of Jesus Christ, when we receive him physically in the Eucharist, the homes that we make here in our souls and our hearts. Because, as St. Paul makes clear, it's about love. It's not about anything else. And if I truly say I love the Lord, but hold back, or I put up that little bit of resistance, or I'm not fully on board, then I got more work to do. And we may all have a little bit more work to do. We're all in different parts of the journey. We're all in different places. But the key to all of this is start preparing yourself to be a welcoming soul. An open soul, a loving soul, that when he stands before you, you will instantly say, "I welcome you into my life. I welcome you fully and totally into my life. I will turn my entire life over to you. I will give you my house, my home, my family. I will turn it all over to you, Lord." And he will say, "Good and faithful servant, you welcomed me. Because that's really what it's all about. That's really the thing that we all should be focusing on. That's the part, my dear brothers and sisters, of our faith that separates us from anybody else, from all the rest in this world. We are totally committed. We are totally on board, or we're not. It's not, it's like a black and white. It's a on or off. There's no in between when it comes to Jesus Christ. And unfortunately in the world today, I have found far too many, especially Catholics, and like 75% of Catholics don't go to church, so we know that when we say Catholics in general, there are a lot of you who are sitting here who are part of that 25%, but that of all Catholics, that lukewarmness, that half-heartedness, that I follow Jesus, but I don't want to hear about contraception, but I don't want to hear about fornication, but I don't want to hear about gay marriage, but I don't want to hear about, because I don't want to deal with it. Either you are or you aren't, and if you struggle with any of these things, then find out where it comes from and why God has revealed such things to us and asked of us to engage the conversation, to engage the prayer, to love the other so much to say, I get it. I'm a sinner, you're a sinner, but together we seek holiness. And I will welcome you into my life and you welcome me into yours, even if we disagree. Even if we don't have the same exact point, I still love you first. And in that love, I pray that you love me back so that we're both building each other up in holiness and not tearing each other down in insults and lies and hatred, because that's not welcoming Jesus Christ. In the end, I always think back when I was working with Mother Teresa's novices at the time. These women they blew my mind. They changed the entire course of my priesthood in some ways by just observing them, by just going to them. Talk about a sense of welcome. They had nothing. They gave it all up intentionally. They lived with the poorest of the poor. But one of the things that Mother Teresa, now Saint Mother Teresa, asks specifically of all of her sisters, every day you go into the church, you get before the Blessed Sacrament for at least 2 hours. Everybody sees them out in the streets. They always see pictures of them feeding the poor. They never saw that. They never saw that side of her sisters or herself. Because she always says, if you don't see Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, you will not see Jesus in your brother and sister in the poorest of the poor. So start there, and if you see him there, then you're allowed to go out and care for the frail, the weak, the infirm. So I ask you, my dear brothers and sisters, see Jesus now. Welcome him into your life the way the good sisters welcomed him into their life. And then when you go out of here, I ask, when you've seen him and experienced him and welcomed him in the Eucharist, now see him, experience him, and welcome him in your brother and sister, most especially the one you find very difficult, most especially the one whose conversion may need to be prayed for, most especially in the one who's hurt or offended you the most. You don't have to be foolish in it, but you do have to be loving. Love the other. That's what St. Paul just said, and that's what Jesus Christ wants. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, today, welcome him, so that someday when you see him in the other, you will be able to embrace him because you welcomed him. God bless you.